Questions and comments. The honourable member for Newmarket Aurora.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to commend the honourable member on his speech, but I find something rather incredulous in all of this, because I too represent a York Region riding just to the north of Richmond Hill, and I have seen considerable business activity going on in the riding of Richmond Hill with the number of investments that our government has made through the Economic Action Plan. We put in place the home renovation tax credit in the 2009 budget, which made opportunities for many local contractors to sign contracts with people who wanted to do work in their homes. We will have the lowest corporate tax rate in the G7 by 2012. We put in place assistance for our manufacturers through their capital cost inputs reduction. So my question to the member is, why won't he support our budgets?
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, I want to point out the honourable member that the corporate taxes dropped under the Liberals from 26 down to 18, and in fact, it was the Liberals that actually reduced the corporate tax under your government. I think they've maybe dropped 1 or 2%. But the reality is that we were the ones who made it economically competitive, again at a time when they were saying something else. On the home tax renovation, very good public policy, unfortunately, again, cancelled. Again cancelled, Mr. Speaker. I will tell you that what I'm interested in my riding of Richmond Hill is not only making sure that I'm going to more openings and closings. I want to make sure that, in fact, we are attracting the kind of leading-edge technology businesses that are going to be there and that are going to be able to employ people in the long term. We are not seeing that at the present time. And therefore, we have to look at a budget, and certainly from our side, you look at a budget, you want to look at the totality of that budget. And the one key thing that I keep seeing is we see a lot of gimmicks. We see a lot of, flashy programs today that are then eliminated. What I'm interested in is, I don't like deficits. Nobody likes deficits. But I like to see a strategy that actually says how I'm going to get out of it. And I want to see an innovation agenda that says, I'm worried about the young people today. I'm worried about those older workers that need to be retrained. And I want to work collaboratively with the provinces and municipalities, because we're in a global situation, Mr. Speaker. In order to do that, we're not just competing with Vancouver or Quebec City. We're competing with New Delhi and Tokyo and everywhere around the world. In order to do that, we have to make sure we're there. So what I'm seeing in my area in South York Region, Mr. Speaker, is a little different than my friend to the north, although I thank my friend for her comments.
Questions and comments. The honourable member for Timmins, James Bay.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I have great enjoyment listening to the Liberals speak, because I've never found a group that is meaner or tougher when it comes to shadow boxing in their bedroom. But when it comes time to actually getting into the ring with this ideological crew, they always take a dive. And I was particularly amused by his comments about the bank deregulation, because if he looks at the Hansard records, he'll remember that it was the Liberal government who was attacking the NDP for being these concerned old little nannies who kept saying we have to stop this bank deregulation. We pushed that again and again, and they ridiculed us now, suddenly, that they don't actually have to stand up and do anything on it. They're trying to take credit. So I'd like to ask the member about another key area of deregulation in C9, which is going to be taking away the post office privilege. We're going to deregulate the post offices. All across rural Canada, they're looking at what's going to happen with the post offices, and I'm hearing nothing from the Liberal Party. So are they going to cave on this, undermine Canada Post and all our rural post offices? Are they going to go along? Are they going to stand up to this government that is breaking apart point after point in industry after industry Canada's advantage?
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Mr. Speaker, there's nothing like hearing from members who have never been in government and probably will not be in government, and therefore can pontificate on absolutely everything under the sun. I don't know. And my friend over there, if he ever got the levers of power, this $56 billion deficit would look like a blip compared to what these guys would do, I'm sure, down there. But seriously, Mr. Speaker, on the question of rural post offices, I believe that it should be a right of Canadians to get their mail. I don't agree with the elimination in rural Canada, so my friend should be happy with that. But I would also point out to my friend that when it comes to the serious issues of the day, when they had an opportunity to support social housing, when they had to support national transportation, etc., they pulled the plug on the Martin government in 2005, and look what we got.
The questions and comments. The honourable member for Bonavista, Trinity, Bonavista, Grand Falls, Windsor.
Thank you, sir. Okay. You know, I always stand here with great amusement over the NDP and this little tirade about shadowboxing. I think that's what my friend used. Back in September, there was a motion in front of this House to express non-confidence, and by the time the vote was done, there had to have been an entire team of paleontologists outside this room. And the reason why they were there was because the NDP lost their backbone so quickly, they had created a whole new class of invertebrate. So the paleontologists waited for them to come outside because they abstained on the vote. So I always find this incredibly rich when I hear them talk about how shadowboxing, but I want to return to the topic at hand. And I want to ask my colleague, because he was a former president of municipalities of this country, and one of the issues that I find is with great difficulty is the cost-sharing element of the budget and the infrastructure spending, certainly when it comes to the economic action plan. Some of the communities are just not able to avail of some of those finances. In one case, the recreation program requiring 50% of the funds. I would like for him to comment how quickly the money must be spent and just how damaging it could be for some of these smaller communities.
The honourable member for Richmond Hill.
Well, I thank my colleague for the question, and there is no doubt, absolutely no doubt, that when the original National Infrastructure Program came into place in 1994, it was a third, and I wasn't one municipality in Canada who couldn't bring the money forth. We are looking at projects usually in a 5-year or 10-year capital forecast that are elevated. When you're talking about 50%, particularly for some small communities, and particularly I know in the members' riding, in wonderful places like Gander, it's very, very difficult. And yet recreation, again, a really important component for whether you're dealing with recreational centres, whether you're dealing with tourism. The fact is that 50% was very, very harsh for many of those smaller municipalities. Plus the fact, Mr. Speaker, the time frame, very, very short. They have to ante up the dollars. Many municipalities right now are going through a very difficult period because of job losses, etc. They don't have the same tax base. And that means then that although they'd like to take the opportunity, they can't take advantage of it. And therefore, the going back to the one-third was very transparent, but also, of course, it was the Liberal government that in terms of the dealing with the gas tax sent directly to municipalities. And if in fact that had been done by this government, we would have seen much more effective infrastructure development because, of course, the money would have been there. And now, talk about shadowboxing, these guys, you must have taken